when Chapman Billies leave the street and thirsty neighbours meet, as market days are getting late and people start to take the gate, and while we sit and drink the ale and getting drunk on many a pail, we think not on the long Scots miles, the bogs, pools, breaches and the stiles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sulky sullen dame, gathering her forehead like a brewing storm, nursing her anger to keep it warm. This truth found honest Tam O Shanter, as he from Ayr one night did canter. Old Ayr that ne'er a town surpasses for honest men and lovely lasses. Oh, Tam, had you but been so wise as taken your own wife Kate's advice, she told you well you were a skellum, a blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, that from November till October each market day you were not sober, that each meal grinding with the miller you sat as long as you had silver, that every horse was shod a shoe on, the smith and you got roaring drunk on, that at the Lord's house, even on Sunday, you drank with Curtain Jean till Monday. She prophesied that late or soon you would be found deep drowned in Doon, or caught with warlocks in the dark by Alloway's old haunted kirk. Ah, gentle folks, it makes me weep to think how many counsels sweet, how many lengthened sage advises the husband from the wife despises. But to our tale, one market night. The fire was blazing hot in the fireplace, and Tam and his thirsty drinking pal Cobbler Johnny had been sitting together in the same spot for weeks on end. They'd been singing and dancing and generally making a right old racket. Each swig of ale seemed to taste better and better, and the landlady and Tam, well, the least said the better. Cobbler Johnny told his strangest tales that made the landlord guffaw out loud with laughter. Such was the time they were having of it. Outside, the weather was blowing a hoolie, but no one, certainly not Tam, gave a flying whistle. Kings might be blessed, but Tam was glorious, over all the ills of life victorious. But like all good things, it must come to an end. No man can tether time or tide. The hour approaches. Tam must ride. As Tam mounted up on his horse, the weather was blowing even worse. Never had a night like this been seen before. The wind was blowing such a gale, the rain was pelting, the thunder roaring, and the lightning flashing. Even a child would have known that this night the devil had business on his hand. Tam's horse, a grey mare called Meg, was one of the finest. Never a better horse had ever lifted leg, and Tam urged her on through puddle, mud and mire. Through the rain and the wind they galloped, Tam's blue bonnet clamped to his head with his hand, singing a quiet sonnet to distract himself, and at the same time wildly casting his eyes around to make sure that no ghost or ghoul would catch him unawares. As Church Alloway drew near, he heard the cry of ghosts and owls. At some pace, he crossed the ford, past the birches and the big stone where Charlie had broken his neck, through the gorse and by the pile of stones where hunters had found the murdered child, and near the thorn above the well where Mungo's mother had hanged herself. Before him, the River Doon was a raging torrent, and the storm roared its way through the woods, whilst the lightning flashed and the thunder claps were ear-splittingly loud. Then he spotted Church Alloway through the trees. It seemed to him to be in a blaze. Through every crack the beams were glancing, with loud resounding mirth and dancing. Bolstered up With the Dutch courage of John Barleycorn, Tam made up his mind. He'd go to the church and face the devil that was so obviously partying within its holy walls on this most unholy of nights. The whiskey coursed through his veins. He didn't fear the devil's coin. But Meg, his horse, stood still in fright until Tam's heels spurred her forwards. And oh, what a wondrous sight! There in the church, he could see witches and wizards dance. No newfangled cotillion brand new from France, but good old hornpipes, jigs, strathspeys and reels. And right in the middle, he saw the old devil in the shape of a beast. A shaggy dog, black, grim and large, to give them music was his charge. The devil sat, playing upon the king of instruments. Harder and louder he played, and faster and harder the dancers danced. As the devil played, coffins stood around like open cupboards. The inhabitants, by some devilish magic device, held each in their cold hands a light. By this light, Tam was able to make out on the altar, in gallows irons a murderer's bones, from gallows rope a thief he moans. 5 tomahawks with blood red rusted, 5 scimitars with murder crusted. 3 lawyers' tongues turned outside in, 3 priests' hearts rotten and black as sin. And as Tam glowered, amazed and curious, the mirth and fun grew fast and furious. As the devil's music much louder grew, the dancers quick and quicker flew. Sweat and steam each witch did spew, off skirts and shirts the witches threw. But Tam, if they'd been young women all plump and strapping in their teens, with undershirts made of snow-white linen and not greasy, dirty flannel, I could have understood. But these withered, wizened old hags with faces that could wean a foal, did this not turn your stomach? What Tam had spotted was the one lovely lassie in the dance that night. Nanny was her name, and she was well feared on Carrick Shore for her love of whiskey, beer, and the shooting of animals. Her grandmother had given her a shift of coarse paisley cloth. £2 this shift had cost, a large sum in those times. Her revered grandmother would most definitely have not approved of the length that this shift was being worn, or the fact that it was gracing a witch's dance. To see how Nanny leapt and kicked, as supple as a horse and just as strong, and how Tam stood like one bewitched, and thought his very eyes enriched. As Satan played ever more fast and furious, one fine leap followed another until Tam finally lost his reason altogether and roared out, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" And in an instant all was dark. And in that one moment, the music stopped. The devil and all the dancers turned and looked at Tam in the window. In terror, Tam had hardly a second to jump upon his horse and rally her into action before that hellish legion began their chase. Just like an angry bee swarming out of their hive, or on market days in a crowd when "Catch the thief!" resounds out loud, so Meg, that poor horse, took to hoof with the witches hot on her heels, their unearthly screeches and cries filling that tormented air. Ah, Tam, you will get your rights. In hell, like a herring, they'll roast you all night. In vain your Kate waits until it's daylight. Only one hope can save our Tam. No witch can cross over running water. So if Meg can get them both across the keystone of the bridge, then safe and sound they will be. But before they can make good their escape, they need to shake off our Nanny. Far ahead of the pack of witches, Nanny was catching up, and she flew at Tam with furious aim and in one last jump made a grasp for Meg. But no one was a match for this fine horse, and with one final leap, Meg and Tam made it to the other side of the keystone, but in doing so, she left behind her tail. Nanny had clutched her by the rump and left poor Meg with scarce a stump. Now who this tale of truth shall read, every man and mother's son take heed. Whenever to drink you are inclined, or short shifts run in your mind, think, while you indulge on your liquid fare, remember Tam O Shanter's mare.